This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome in to this week's special episode of Doc and Jock, featured on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Adam is barely hanging on for a couple hours sleep. He's got a big announcement he's going to share with everybody. It's a good time for him and his family. Our family's doing great. It's a growing podcast family, and I'm very happy to hear all the good news about my guy, Adam. Things are going great in the world of Detroit sports. I just want to get a couple nuggets from Adam about the Red Wings trade deadline. Are they going to go out and make a move, or should they make a move? I think today is the deadline, or this week is the deadline. I just want to get his sense. The Pistons are in a spot where they're in a unique spot where now they're the hunted, and some of the other teams are starting to talk a little trash. It's going to be very interesting. And then obviously we'll talk about the Lions, who made a move with David Montgomery. And listen, if you follow us here at the podcast, nobody should be surprised. Everybody's a competitor. NFL means ego. And I think the Lions did absolutely wonderful to figure out a way to kind of solve an issue that would have probably lingered into the season. But what's up, cuz? You got some news?
I do. We welcomed in a baby boy on Monday. So little Robert Adam is alive and running around. And right now, I think he's getting fed by his mother. So little Bobby is kicking ass and taking names already. So it's good. I got no sleep last night. This is, I think, day 3 or 4 in a row of not getting much, if any, sleep. So I do feel bad for his mother, because that thing is a feeding machine. He's also a shitting machine. Dude just does nothing but eat and poop. And I was telling you before the podcast started, I had a girl with our first kid, and she's absolutely spectacular. And this is how they rook you. The first one is always great. First one is absolutely incredible. The second one comes along, they're just a little bit different, just a little bit more challenging. And look, she was a girl, and I thought it was going to be hard with all the girl parts and having to clean up the poop and all that stuff. Let me tell you this. Boys are incredibly difficult, especially when they like to kick a lot. This dude is kicking all over the place, putting his foot in his dirty diaper. I got to clean around his big-ass ball sack. And here's the deal. He's a Strozinski. So wiener is small, but balls are huge. My man's got 2 things in this world. It's his word and his balls, and he breaks them for no one. So he's kicking ass and taking names, and he's keeping his dad on his feet as he's got to clean up all of the poop that he leaves him. But look, man, all that's going on. Detroit Lions making moves. There's a lot to talk about as far as the Lions go. The trade deadline is going to be here on Friday at 3:00. So there's things going on there. Feels like, seems like, sounds like Red Wings might be involved. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. But the big news this week was David Montgomery. And like you said, if you followed along at SI.com, you know that things weren't right. Things were a little bit off. It sounded like he asked to be released. Sounded like he asked to be traded. He had a destination of Texas. So Brad Holmes obliged, was able to complete a trade with Texas, or with the Texans, and send David Montgomery there. I just want to get your perspective. What happened with Demo? Because it felt like this was a relationship that was a match made in heaven, especially when he got here a couple of years ago. They recently extend him, and he doesn't even get into his extension before they're now trading him to Houston. And all of a sudden, this relationship just kind of soured out of nowhere. So I want to get your perspective on what took place with David Montgomery, what took place with the Detroit Lions, and then we can kind of talk about what Brad Holmes was able to get out of this.
Absolutely, because it's fascinating. If you are a player that is drafted by Brad Holmes, you're in the club. You're in the heavenly gates. And Jahmyr Gibbs was drafted. So he's in the heavenly gates, and everybody loves Jahmyr Gibbs. He's going to get paid, even though you and I will debate maybe should he get $18 to $20 million a year? I would say no. But he's in the Brad Holmes family club. We're talking about family, where he's getting the nice warm blanket. Guy like David Montgomery, he's getting the old hand-me-down blanket, unfortunately, that's from great-grandma. And you're like, wait a minute, what's going on? What's the difference? David Montgomery was a free agent, and he was always going to be the number 2. But he was happy being the number 2 where he got some touches. It was like 1A, 1A minus. Last year, it became 1A and 1C plus. He was like, what happened to my touches? And it went down to 6. And what made it worse was all the media was talking about it, short yardage situations. You're not using David Montgomery. Dan Campbell's asked about it. We love Montgomery. And so finally, guys, I think with reporting, with podcasting, you now know players are going to use their social media for PR. He's not going to come out and say, trade me, I want out. All he's going to do is he's going to go on Instagram, put a little photo of his jersey. He's going to put a little photo on social media of himself running out of the tunnel. So trust your reporters. And here's the thing. Nobody should be surprised because I slapped a big fat headline in SI to say, hey, the people that I'm talking to are telling me he is going to be shopped directly at the combine. So what more do you need, whether you believe it or you don't? And guess what? I'm not somebody that just creates the fudge, doesn't tell you how it's made. It's simple. Brad Holmes opened the David Montgomery story after the season. He's like, well, we got to weigh our options. Well, what options do you have? He's on the team. He's got a contract. Oh, he ain't happy. It's pretty simple. The NFL world is not like rocket science here. A guy like me and a guy like Adam who's in tune with the NFL, we can piece together the puzzle correctly. David Montgomery could have said, Mr. John Macaroon is a liar and he didn't talk to me. Yeah, and I'd come out the same day when David Montgomery. See, what people do is they hear a tweet and then they go, oh, we're good. What a guy like me does and goes and says, wait a minute, let me tell you what he said, and then let me tell you what was not said. He didn't say, I want to be here. He never said it publicly. He said, oh, I love Drew Petzing. I like it. And yeah. He gave all the bullshit answers on Radio Row. But Doc and Jock can sift through the bullshit. No problem. Adam and I, we know the bullshit when we see it, and we can smell it, and we can talk about it. And the same day, because he got traded, if you saw, I wrote what David Montgomery did not say in his viral post. And in that post, I said, listen, guys, if Brad Holmes gets a deal he likes, he's making it. So this is common sense, but what Adam and I are able to do is, yes, we're fans of sports, but we're also fans of reality and ego. We understand ego. We understand that, hey, if I'm working and I make X, and then I look and the guy that I'm working with in the same stall is going to make 5,000 times as much, and you're like, oh, okay, if Jahmyr Gibbs is going to make $20 million, they're never going to give me the football. So he wanted out. He just is, and they're never going to say it publicly. These are all good guys. And wait a minute, fans. I thought that David Montgomery was having like a love affair with Drew Petzing. I thought Drew Petzing was having a love affair with David Montgomery. I love Drew. Drew loves David. David loves Drew. Why isn't he here? So come on, guys. Put aside your fandom and your blinders and trust the people. The storyline tells itself. In the business of the NFL, you can't pay a running back $8 million to give you $2 million in production. It's simple as that. And let's not be whiny fans here and loyal fans that don't understand business. The Lions don't want to pay a running back $8 million. They just gave him a little raise for the work that he did. They made him happy. And guys, this is not emotional. David Montgomery is not crying today. He got sent to the Texans. He's finally got a defense, and he's going to get some love. He's happy. And even though Jahmyr Gibbs posted on social media a little bit of a heartbreak, it's professional. These are grown men, and grown men want to make as much money as possible. So yes, publicly, everybody loves everybody. Dan loves all the players love Dan. Brad loves all the players love Brad. But behind the scenes, David Montgomery was like, hey, you know I'm still here. Get me out. And they worked out a deal, and it's business. And so thankfully, our reporting got proved right. Everybody here in the podcast land understands what happened, and you are not in the dark because remember, tweets from athletes, especially when they tweet once every 5 years, is simply spin and PR, and they don't want the fan base to turn against them so that he can write, thank you, fans. The time here that your blind loyalty was simply amazing. But meanwhile, behind the scenes, he's like, hey, I want to go to a winner. So, and in the end, his departure for the time being hurts the Lions because they got a great deal. Brad Holmes, in this case, A-okay. I give it a B+. Juice is a player that you hope maybe turns into something as a rotational piece, but I love those draft picks because it gives you flexibility to play around in the draft. So A+ for Brad for understanding. But guys, remember, David Montgomery was not in the family. He was not in the warm blanket draft club. He was in the kind of, you're an outsider, come in, help us out club. So unfortunately, we take back the blanket and we find another one.
Yeah, no, look, I think with Brad Holmes, he gets an A+. You were able to, I mean, you heard that they wanted a 5th round pick for this. And then the initial reporting was it was a 5th round pick. And look, when the initial reports came out, I was frustrated. I was like, man, it better be something better than just a low-level 5th round pick. And it turns out it's a 4th round pick, and then it's a 7th round pick, and then you got a player in exchange. And look, Juice Scruggs, don't know if he'll be anything great. Like you said, the hope is he becomes a rotational player, somebody that you can work in. Look, you've seen what happened last year with the offensive line. Guys got banged up, guys got beat up, guys couldn't play. Your hope is he can come in, he can fill in admirably, and he can not give up pressures, not give up sacks, and he can perform. Maybe they see a little bit more in him, and maybe he can grow into a starter. I don't think that's the case. I went back and I read some of his pre-draft comps and kind of what they were saying about him. And pre-draft, when he was coming out of Penn State, sounds like he was supposed to be a fantastic player and was supposed to be a guy who could one day become a starter. So maybe the Lions can pull that out. Maybe they can develop it. I think right now, your ceiling for him, just rotational piece. You get a rotational piece and you get those 2 draft picks, I think you're doing a fantastic job. On top of that, you're saving money with the salary cap. We talked the last couple of weeks about how they're in a little bit of a bind with the salary cap, and we're expecting a restructure for Jared Goff to come down the way. I'm expecting a restructure for Amon-Ra St. Brown to come on down the way, and that should free up a bunch more money. This right here helps clear a bit off the top. Also, you did a restructure with David Montgomery, and you never even hit it. Now, that being said, this is how Brad Holmes operates. He's always trying to get out in front of whatever the dramatic payday is going to be that's going to cost him in the long run. And that has pros and that has cons. Pros are, in the long term, you're going to save some money if you keep that player, right? If you sign a guy a year early, you sign a guy 2 years early, you're not getting hit with whatever the maximum dollar amount is that they could be earning the year that they could re-sign. And that's fantastic. The cons are you end up in a spot where you're signing a guy, you're giving them guaranteed money up front, which kind of cuts into other things that you can do, other money that you can spend. And then that player might not be here. You look at, obviously, David Montgomery in this case. You look at Kirby Joseph. We don't know what's going to happen with there. There's a guy who was signed early. The whole thing with Jamison Williams, and then it just like that contract's always going to stick in my craw and is never going to make me feel happy. So signing guys early benefits you in the long term if you can keep the player as far as salary cap goes. Short term, it kind of hamstrings you a little bit and puts some handcuffs on you. But what Brad Holmes was able to do was get meaningful picks out of it and get a player that they could possibly use. I think now when you look at the Detroit Lions roster, like you said, it hurts them now in the short term. Long term, you've got some cap space now. You got a little bit of money. So you can go out and you can add to that running back room there, or you can use a draft pick and draft a guy. How do you think the Lions address the running back room? Do you think that they go into this draft and they find somebody in a late round? Or do you think that they go out and they spend a couple of $1 million? When I say a couple of $1 million, I mean like 2 or 3. A name that I heard floated out there is a guy like Curtis Gainwell. I think he'll cost you, according to Spot Track, he'll cost you something like $3 million a year, which is essentially half of what David Montgomery is going to cost you. That's a guy who can run between the tackles and catch a couple balls out of the backfield, and he's good in pass coverage. So how do you think they approach this headed into this offseason? Is this more of a draft now type of thing? Or is this, let's go hit free agency and let's go sign a guy who we're going to get some tread out of?
Yeah, no, it's a very good point. I just think you got to go as affordable as possible. You got to go in the draft. I know that they always look for best player available, but you got to allocate some resources to the guys on your own team. And I think that the position of need at running back is not the most serious. So I have to go in the draft. 6th round, 7th round, you potentially get Jam Miller, or you get Singleton, you get somebody else. So unfortunately, you got to go cheap at that position. It's not the position of need that you need the most. So that's how I would look at it. But yeah, if a Gainwell's available, affordable, a Nick Chubb, a couple $1 million, you want to take a flyer, no problem. But you got Sailors on the roster, you got Sione Vaki on the roster. That's just not the biggest position of need. In my opinion, you got to allocate it for center. So the biggest free agency splash I need to see is that's the only thing. I know people are a little bit frustrated with seeing the Rams be aggressive already, and you're not. We haven't even declared how much money yet.
We could talk about
that,
for
sure.
And after we get through some Max Crosby stuff, if you want, because look, I had a chance to listen to the radio a little bit.
Yeah,
a couple of guys locally have made some really good points about Brad Holmes that I would love to get your perspective on. So, but let's table that for maybe back in the podcast. You brought up center though, and look, Graham Glasgow was released.
Yep,
and I think that's significant. I think what Brad Holmes is telling you is what took place last year isn't good enough. We have to retool this offensive line. What we got out of them as far as production goes, just isn't going to get us to where we want to go. I think Graham Glasgow getting released, I want to get your perspective. I think Graham Glasgow getting released signifies that they're going to retool this offensive line.
Yes.
And I don't know how extensive it's going to be, but I feel like it could look dramatically different than anything that you have seen thus far. I could see Penei Sewell getting flipped over to the left side. I could see them going into this draft, drafting a right tackle. I could see them going into free agency, like you said, spending big money, that money that they got from letting David Montgomery go, that money that they're going to get from those contract restructures. I could see them spending that money and going out and trying to attack a guy like Tyler Lindenbaum. I could see them going out and addressing their center needs specifically in free agency, and then building up the guard position either internally or doing stuff within the draft. What are your thoughts on the sign that was essentially let off by Brad Holmes when Graham Glasgow was released? Because I'll be honest with you, I thought that was a guy who still had some production left in him. I don't think it was great. I don't think it was going to be set the world on fire. I think the moment Graham Glasgow got here, he was excited to be a Lion again, and I think the Lions were excited to have him. But ever since he's come here, he's been moved around. He's been played out of position his entire time in Detroit, and I don't think he ever necessarily felt comfortable in his role. And I think that kind of hampered some of his production. This guy is a better right guard than he is a center or left guard, and this guy has never really had a chance to play that right guard position. And so I think it was, again, just a little bit of misfortune. I think it was a little bit of believing that you had the best O-line in football and not really realizing that it was degrading in front of you. And so I think the Lions now, they're like, look, now is the time. We're going to retool this thing on the fly, and we're going to try to make it better. What does the release of Graham Glasgow say to you?
Yeah, it tells me that, okay, first and foremost, his productivity wasn't there, and you have to have a better option. And I do think that they will have a better option, whether it be free agency or Tate Ratledge. Both, even though Tate Ratledge is inexperienced, would be a better option. So you got to have the position succeed. Look, it just didn't work out, and he got a raw deal. He wanted to play guard, and he got shifted to center. That's what happens. The NFL, shit happens. But in the end, it's time to upgrade the position. You got to be a little bit more aggressive. And so I think the worst option is Tate Ratledge at center. I'd be very upset and very nervous.
I think so too.
Yeah, I'd be very nervous. I don't want to hear that. I don't want. I think go get a center. And I don't know if that's a smokescreen to potentially bring down a cost of a center. And I would agree that Brad Holmes is not looking to overpay for people, but you got to get a vet. It has to be a vet. And unfortunately, I don't want to be disrespectful, but I was so tired when I announced the trade on YouTube. I called them Juice Scrubs. And I was like, oh, come on. And people were like, come on. I'm like, oh, yeah, Juice Scruggs. And so I just realized you got to get experience, whether it be McGovern, whether it be Cade Mays, whether it be if Froholt from the Cardinals gets released.
There's guys. You've got to go get somebody.
Yes. So so please allow the Detroit Lions to have a center that's a vet. And so what happens is right now the Lions are taking it easy. They're probably working on, if they haven't done Jared Goff yet, which I expect maybe today or tomorrow, then maybe they're working on the contract for Gibbs, and that would make it something that is going to get done. So those talks probably are happening. They'll probably get done. But I just think that what sucks is now you have a front runner who's declaring their aggression. They're declaring their intention, and that's the Los Angeles Rams. They made a trade for McDuffie. They're aggressive. So when Brad Holmes says, I need to kind of understand, what do you mean by define for me aggressive? Well, what your former boss did was aggressive. They traded 3-4 picks for a corner, and they're going to pay him. And it was a clear, obvious sign of need. They went out and got somebody that they want to potentially help their football team win in a year where Stafford might be in his last year. So that would be aggressive. You understand? Aggressive means bold, bolder, outside of your norm. Pay people. Maybe if you want to pay 17, you pay 19. That's aggressive. Aggressive means in an effort to win, because your boss is not sitting on his ass. He's out there. Your former boss is not sitting on his ass. He's showing the world, hey, I have a need. I go out and take care of it quickly. So that's where the fan base is getting a little bit unruly, because they're starting to project, well, Brad Holmes is kind of dipping his toe in the water of free agency, but he kind of is just sitting there going, well, if I get my guy, great. If I don't, great. Where the fan base is saying, and I think correctly, radio stations, us, we're saying, if you don't get this right, you will have effed your season already, and you will be 5 steps behind. This is the NFL.
Last year. Just like last year.
Yes. So get after it.
Like last year.
You got to hit. You got to win free agency. And right now, we don't even know how much we have to spend. But I think the fan base is like, we're not confident yet. Show us, Brad, that you're going to help us win free agency. And I think that's where the fans are at. They're looking at him correctly with a skeptical eye. Prove to us that you're going to get this team better, and not go cheap and go, well, we'll just use a rookie who's never played, a second-year player who's never played a real NFL snap at center, and go, yeah, that's a good option. No, it isn't. We all know what that means.
Yep. And look, like you said, we don't even know what they have as far as cap goes. You know what I say? I say go be aggressive, go be balls to the wall now, and you can figure it all out before the league year starts. There's no penalty for being over the cap now. The penalty sets in when the league year begins, and that doesn't actually happen until I want to say training camp. Actually, no, it doesn't even happen until the beginning of the season. So you've got time. You've got months to figure out your cap. And again, we're expecting a restructure for Jared Goff. We're expecting a restructure from Amon-Ra St. Brown. There are ways to make money appear. The salary cap, for those who don't understand, the salary cap is one of those things where it's like an invisible handcuff, right? It's that glass ceiling, if you will. And it's there to just kind of keep things tempered, to keep things from going absolutely haywire. And it gives you some parameters that you have to work within. That being said, it's not like it's real. You can punch through a glass ceiling. You can break through, and you can move money around, and you can kick stuff down, and you can have dead years and deferred years, and you can do things with signing bonuses, and you can allocate money all over the place. So the salary cap doesn't really exist. That's why you have a capologist, a guy who really understands on how to essentially move money around. Think about the salary cap as essentially a Ponzi scheme. That's all it really is. But back to Brad Holmes being aggressive in the offseason. There was a report from Albert Breer. And this is going to tie into, I think, our Brad Holmes conversation and kind of what we maybe think of him and what we feel of him, because he has shown a apprehension to be aggressive in free agency. You basically laid out the perfect picture when you were talking about what happened with David Montgomery. He likes his own guys. He likes the guys he scouts. He likes the guys that he has spent time and invested in. Does not necessarily like going out grabbing big name free agencies. Does not like to do what Les Snead does for the Rams, who made a monster trade the other day. But Albert Breer on his Monday morning quarterback podcast said Max Crosby could be traded within the next week. And it sounds as though the Chicago Bears are the leader in the clubhouse. To me, you want to be aggressive. You want to send a message to not just the league, but also the NFC North. You want to send a message to everybody else that you're not scared, that you're not playing around the season, and that your Super Bowl window is now. You're involved in the conversation for Max Crosby. You're going to go out there and you're going to try to get him, if not secure him. If the Chicago Bears are able to get Max Crosby, and look, they were dealt a bit of a punch in the junk as their center decided to retire after 1 year. Dude was 27 and was like, yeah, I'm good playing football. Thanks, guys. So now they've got to pivot, and they also have to find a center. But if they are able to get Max Crosby, that makes their defensive front that much more formidable. That was a team that, yes, you were able to handle because their secondary was weak, but their defensive front is essentially the key to that defense. They need more pieces. This guy puts them over the top and makes them incredibly dangerous in an NFC North that they've already won. I think for the Detroit Lions, the defense for years has kind of played second fiddle to the offense. The defense has not gotten the pieces nor the love that it needs. You go out and you get a guy like this and you pair him with Aiden Hutchinson, all of a sudden you got two wrecking crews on the side. You got two dudes whose motor does not stop, two guys who do nothing but try to get to the quarterback, and you're telling the rest of the league, hey, take notice. We here. I need to see Brad Holmes go do something like this. Do I think that he's able to get Max Crosby? Do I think he's able to go out there and get him? No, I think it's a bit of a pipe dream, if we're being honest. I think the contract, he could make it work again. Go out there, spend crazy money, and fix it on the back end. I think that would probably be the best bet. But I need to see a move like this because, like you laid out, he's a guy that loves who he drafts, loves to spend the guys that are included in his club, and does not really like to go out of his way to grab another guy who has shown that he can do it. Does not like to go out and be that guy to pay that other guy that big second contract. He doesn't like doing that. He likes to draft his own guys, sign his own guys, and then add little pieces. If you look at that defensive front, you look at the pieces that he had. He had a DJ Reader, who was at the back end of his career, got him kind of on the cheap. Marcus Davenport, got him on the cheap. He was willing to bring back a guy like Josh Pascal, who has given you nothing for 4 years, brought him back for a fifth. And guess what? He still gave you nothing. A guy like Levi Onwuzurike, guy that he drafted, a guy that you can't seem to get rid of. He's going to be back next year. It's all guys that he has. Again, their own words, Dan Campbell, Brad Holmes. We can't fall in love with our own guys. They do nothing but fall in love with their own guys. And they look at re-signing them way early, and then that hamstrings you from being able to go out and grab a guy like a Max Crosby or
Trey Hendrickson.
Trey Hendrickson. Thank you. Or a guy like Trey Hendrickson. And in the end, we talked about invisible handcuffs. Brad Holmes invisibly handcuffs this team. Like, he's the guy that has kind of built this constraint around this Lions team, and specifically, he neglects the defense. So I need to see him be involved, going out and trying to get a guy like Max Crosby. Do you see him making a massive play like that? Because Dave Burkett of the Detroit Free Press had an article the other day where he basically said, don't expect them to be a big player in free agency. Don't expect them to go out and do these things. And I need that to not be the case this year. I need him to go and make at least one big splash. I would prefer two, one on the offensive line and one on the defensive front, and that would make me incredibly happy. Do you see Brad Holmes making that splash, or do you think he's more of he's going to play it safe again? He's going to be a guy who's going to hold the chips close to his chest. He's going to sign his own guys, and he's just going to go into free agency, and he's going to get guys out of the bushel bin again.
Yeah, no, it's just a tough thing because the Raiders want to max out. They want 2 firsts and a player, or 1 first and 2 players. So I think the team that can do that is the Dallas Cowboys. They can definitely make that splash, and I would expect that the Raiders don't want to end up paying the.
You know what sucks? The player that you could have sent to him possibly could have been David Montgomery.
Yeah. Or JMO, an offensive weapon for Fernando Mendoza. I would do it. I would do 1 first in JMO and see if you can do that. But here's the deal.
The only thing with JMO is the salary cap that you're like the debt salary number that you're going to have to swallow. Because again, this is what I was talking about earlier.
Paying him early.
You signed him early.
Yeah.
Like, you didn't have to sign him.
You could have gave him. Yeah. Do that. Exactly. I think that they
again, Brad Holmes constraining his own team and hurting himself.
Yeah, but I think they feel like they can get 2 defensive ends in the draft. It's a deep class. A lot of people love it, and they feel like there's opportunities there. And look, 29 years old. They don't want to pay. They don't want. I just think that across the league, and again, this is where the evolution of play it safe or define aggressive. Most teams don't pay one defensive end $45 million and then the other $29. But guess what? Most teams have also been in the Super Bowl once. And this is the definition of aggressive, where you say, well, the NFL world does this, and here's what the Lions are failing to understand. This fan base does not care if you sacrifice 2 or 3 years in the pursuit of winning. If you go out and get Max Crosby and you go out at the trade deadline, you make another move and it fails, the fan base will be sad, but they'll applaud you and say, yeah, you put your nuts on the table. Instead, you are trying to sell sustained success on the heels of regressing in 3 years. So tell me again how draft and develop works. So you drafted, you developed, you signed a couple guys in free agency, paid them, but you didn't sign universal top 2 guys, name guys, high-end guys. So you're telling me that you want to raise ticket prices for the fans, you want to have your season results decline, and you want to go against what they want to do, which is to get big talent that they want to see. And you're not helping your defense, which has sucked for the last 2 years. So this is how you're selling it to the fan base. Your fan base, and I'm not saying you operate based on what the fans want, but all the fans said last year was, hey, get a defensive end. We don't like your defense. And guess what? The defense was the weakness of the team. So the fans understand some things, and they also understand that, hey, wait a minute. The Seattle GM rebuilt his team twice before you got there once. The Eagles won a Super Bowl and tore it all down, had an issue, lost a Super Bowl, got back again and won a Super Bowl. The Rams, and unfortunately, things do evolve. Unfortunately, prior to this podcast, the Rams declared their intention. So now you have to also look, and you can't just operate in a vacuum and go, yeah, our safe and sign our own guys and sign a bunch of $1 million contracts and see if we can get people to overproduce, and let's hope. Hope doesn't get the Lions stuff. Maybe other teams can get that luck. But guess what happens when we hope? Then half of our great safety unit is injured. So there is no hope for the Lions. It's just push it in and let's see what happens. That's what the fans want. Push it in. Let's go. If you mess up in 26, fine. We'll sacrifice 27 and 28. Tear it all down. Go through. Trade. Teams are trading players for picks all the time. Tear it all down and draft much better and use the draft to do what you got to do. But you're not winning a Super Bowl with a rookie class this year. And Terry Arnold might have to deal with some outside stuff this year.
Yeah. Let me present this to you. So a lot of fans are scared to kind of go for that all-in mentality.
Right.
They're afraid of giving up draft picks now for players. Let me lay this out for you. If you look at what the Los Angeles Rams have done over the last 10 years, they used 1 first-round pick in the last 10 years. That was on Jared Goff.
Right.
You know what they've done in that time? This is what they've done in that time. They've won a Super Bowl. They've made, I think, 4 playoff appearances. They've had, I think, 4 10-win seasons. This is a team that is regularly competitive in a very, very tough NFC West. Like, they are one of the 2 premier teams in that league, or in that division. So you are able to trade away first-round picks, and you are able to be successful and go and make noise. Like, it is possible, guys. You don't need to be afraid of what might come. But that's the difference. It's a different mentality.
Yes.
Right? You've got a guy in Brad Holmes who likes to keep his toys. He does not like to share them, does not like to trade them, does not like to go out and gather other toys that he did not select or that he did not pick. And that's part of the problem. Because when you watch a guy like Les Snead is willing to trade away every draft pick he has for the Los Angeles Rams to go get a guy who's going to help make an impact now, understands that, hey, we are in our Super Bowl window. We're trying to win another one. And let that sink in. You traded Matt Stafford away. He was the reason that your Super Bowl window opened, but in that same time, they will probably win 2 Super Bowls and you will have won none. Because Les Snead is willing to be ballsy and go do these things. And then you look at what goes on in Kansas City. Kansas City is I think, something else that Brad Holmes isn't, right? A team that is willing to draft guys.
Then trade them.
Make them better. Invest in them. And get them to a point where they're looking at a massive, big contract the following year. And then you know what they do?
They trade them.
Trade them away.
Duh.
They gather more draft picks, and they go into the draft, and they just do it again.
Right.
He doesn't like doing either one of these things. He likes to be right in the middle. And you know what that says to me? you are never going to do what you need to do because you're so stuck with your own guys, re-signing your own dudes, and trying to build your own way, which is a little bit stubborn. You need to take from both sides and then do what you're doing. We both give Brad Holmes his kudos. He's very good at the draft. We think he's very good at it. But at the same point, he has had monster swing and misses.
Yes.
He has done things that has left potential for this team to win a Super Bowl on the table by either not making big moves or not trading players away to get other pieces in return to help develop what you've got going. And look, and like I said, forever and a day, as long as Brad Holmes is general manager, this is always going to bother me. The Jameson Williams contract signing, right, is always going to bother me because that is a guy. When you looked at that receiving room, there was one guy in that receiving room that you needed to sign. That was Amon-Ra St. Brown. And the reason I say you needed to sign him was because he was the heartbeat of the team. He was the tenor of the team. He basically, any receiver that came in there, you need to outwork me. You need to outwork me. And guess what? I'm outworking you. So level up. Let's go. J-Mo was electric. He was steak. He was sizzle. He wasn't really steak. He was more sizzle than anything else. He was a guy who has boundless potential, but you didn't need to sign him. He was not integral to the team. He was not a piece that you're like, we have to have this guy. Again, wide receivers are a dime a dozen. You can go get wide receivers out of a bushel bin. There's athletic dudes who can catch a football and run fast. Yes, he runs incredibly quick. When he's on the field, there's the problem. When he's on the field, you didn't have to sign him. What you could have done is you could have let him go into his final year. You could have then traded him away. You might not have got a first, but you would have got at least a second for him, or you could have franchised him. He would have had a great year this year. You could have then traded him away for a first. Like there are many ways to skin a cat. And Brad Holmes just wants to keep all of his kittens. He, at this point, is the cat hoarder. He's the weird cat lady on the block who's got like 37 cats in her house, smells like piss. So, like, it just, again, he does a good enough job with what he does. Right. But he needs to do a better job.
He's got to level up. Level up, baby. Exactly.
Years ago, we talked about him being the best guy in the league.
Yeah.
At this point, you can look all over the league.
Right.
John Lynch is better. Schneider's better.
Veach is better from KC.
Veach is better.
Howie Roseman.
Like Les Snead's better. Like,
yeah.
Like we're just spitballing here.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? So he needs to do a better job.
Exactly. He's got to level up. Exactly. He's definitely a graduate level general manager, but now it's time to get into the master's level class and be able to maneuver. And I think that's the scary part is I just think that they got burned by Cam Sutton, Emmanuel Mosley, a lot of the free agents. Look, you gave $16 million to DJ Reed. That's way overpaying him. And you probably made the wrong move. I mean, you probably should have just given Carlton Davis 20. So you can't keep making miss after miss after miss after miss. That's the definition. That's what's gross is that's the fine line between getting to the playoffs and winning a Super Bowl. That's how the minutia of some deals where most general managers are not trading up 30 spots to get a wide receiver when you already have Jameson Williams under contract. They might have used that for maybe a defensive tackle or another safety or an offensive lineman. So
how nice would it have been to have multiple third-round picks?
Multiple third-round picks this year, maybe to move up. So we'll see, but that's the nature of, I do think that Brad Holmes likes the guys that he has, maybe just a little bit too much. But to me, cuz I'm going shopping, baby. So while the Lions are doing the layaway plan, Doc is over here. We're going shopping. So let's do the dream scenario. If we get one, I'm throwing out all four names. And if we get one, fine. Come on, baby. Come on down, Rangers. Vincent Trocheck, you are a Red Wing. You're coming down, and Steve Eisman's going to buy you. Justin Falk from the Blues, come on down. You're going to be a member of the Red Wings. We need you. Rasmus Ristolian from the from the Philadelphia Flyers. Come on down. You're going to be a member of the Red Wings. And we're going to just start wheeling and dealing. I don't care if we have to, Doc and Jock have to fly to Sweden ourselves. We'll just start picking prospects and go, one to you, Flyers, one to you, Blues, one to you, Rangers, we need some of your guys. And then finally, Blake Coleman, two-time Cup winner with the Lightning. I think that Coleman can do something. So one of those guys, I need. Listen, I want a couple. I want Steve Yzerman. We're manifesting it. Please, Mr. Yzerman, teams are starting to make moves. Some of the guys that you wanted have already been plucked. But I think if you ask me, if I just get one, because I know how it is, the Christmas tree never has 4 presents. It never does. It has one. Just give me Trocheck and I'll be happy. But if there's an impactful move to be made, cuz what happens? What do you want on your wish list? What the hell should Steve Yzerman do? Because I'm not a fan of watching the last game where you give up 2 goals late in a game and give up points to the Vegas Golden Knights. Listen, I know you can make people happy with chicken nuggets in a Zamboni. That's cool. I might have to go down there just to get one because that sounds cool. But if it's like a $25 chicken nugget bucket, I'm going to be very upset. But I want to see this hockey club be aggressive because there's a chance to build up a trust to get to the postseason and win games. But luckily, the Gibson injury doesn't seem to be too crazy. But what's the hope level? What's going to happen at the deadline?
Look, I believe Steve Yzerman has to make an impactful move.
He's
got to go out there and he's got to get at least a top 6 forward, or he's got to get a top 4 defenseman. He's got to get one of the two. All right. In a perfect world, he gets both.
Woohoo!
But he has to make a move of some substance, right? So let me throw a couple names out there. You threw a couple names out there. Let me throw a couple names out there. I think the pipe dream, right? Like the heavy hitter. I think he's going to cost too much in the long term. But Elias Pettersson from Vancouver. He's got a cap hit of 11.6. Steve Yzerman doesn't like paying any more than 8 for guys, so I don't think that falls in line. But that is the dream scenario. You go get this guy. This guy was prolific 2 years ago. Vancouver ends up signing him, and numbers have kind of dwindled. He's only 27, so I think he still has that prolific player in him. I think it just needs to be unleashed. But I'm also in lockstep with you. I think go get Vincent Trocheck. Trocheck has been a Detroit Red Wing killer for years. He's a player that I've always wanted. He's a little bit older, 32, but the cap number works out really, really well, I think, for this team. Blake Coleman, another guy, 34, is another player who could come in and help fill out one of those positions in the top 6 of your forwards. Let me throw another guy out there, a young guy, a guy who you can trade and maybe build around, sign him to an extension. Shane Wright from the Seattle Kraken. Dude's 22, makes less than $1 million a year as far as his cap hit goes. This guy could fit into your top 6 anywhere in the league, and he's going to make you better. All right? Then we switch gears a little bit. I like what you said. Justin Falk, I think that would be absolutely fantastic if they were able to go out there and get him from St. Louis. Another guy, another Rangers. Like if you were to do like this double dip with the Rangers where you said like, I don't know, 3 pieces for 2, it would be fantastic. And you could get Trocheck and you could get Braden Schneider, defenseman. Again, I think he'd be just on the outs. He'd be just there at you as your 4th defender, right? I don't think he's prolific in any way, but the guy does just enough to help you win. He's just offensively talented enough. He's not a liability there. I think he would work out fantastic for this team. So there are guys out there that they can go and get. Tyler Meyer was a guy that was talked about. He recently got traded to the Dallas Stars. So they are in the market for a guy. It just depends on who they're going to get and what they're willing to give up. Would have been really nice if they would have been a little bit more involved with the Quinn Hughes trade. Maybe we get him when he becomes a free agent. I don't know. We'll see. But there are a ton of guys out there that they could go get. How would you feel about them going out there and swinging a deal for Jordan Binnington?
Yeah.
Binnington's a guy who played, obviously, for the gold medal for Team Canada. He's a guy who won a Stanley Cup in St. Louis. A little bit older at this point. He's now 32. His cap number's not crazy. He's going to be an unrestricted free agent at the end of 2027. So I don't think goaltending is necessarily the big issue here. I think you got 2 guys who are good enough. I really think this team gets better if you added a forward and a defenseman.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be upset about Binnington.
No.
But I don't think we need another goaltender.
No, you just need some backups, and you need a reliable kind of situation, maybe just a little bit lesser tier, maybe to see what you give up. But I do think one move is coming. I just think that something supplemental to you got to give the guys a little hope. And I think that if you pass this deadline without making a move, I think that you could see the March swoon. So before we get out of here, make sure you add Adam on X at AdamRSTROZ. Follow us at the network at Detroit Podcast. This is the lightning round. 3 topics just off the top of your head. Let me know what you think. These are the 3 things that we didn't get to in depth, but we just got to touch on from the news this week, and maybe we'll implement just a little bit of lightning rounds when stuff pops up. Max Clark, too much bling or do your thing, young stud?
Do your thing, young stud. I think it bothers older people in baseball. I do think it's a little bit over the top, but I don't mind it, man. Do your thing.
Do your thing. Kevin McGonigal, does he come out of spring training and make the team?
I would love to say yes, but I think the Tigers are going to play the game where they're going to try to preserve his rights. So I think he'll be brought up sometime in April after they get the extra year.
And one final thought, are you concerned about the Cavs being on the heels of the Pistons? They talk a little smack and then got to win against the Pistons.
I think with the Pistons, if they play their A game, this is the thing, they've got to play their A game. I think they can go toe-to-toe with just about anybody in the NBA. When they come in and they have a little bit of a lackadaisical performance, they're not good enough to where they can overcome that. They will get beat by anybody in the league. So I think they're one of those teams, it's a coin flip. You play you play your game and you play well, you're going to win those games. If you come in with a half-hearted effort, you're losing every day of the week to insert team. Could be Charlotte, doesn't matter. Could be the Wizards, doesn't matter. Could be anybody, doesn't matter. So I'm not necessarily worried about the Cavs. I'm more worried about the Pistons handling their business on a day-in, day-out basis.
Yeah, they got to shoot the 3 just a little bit better. They got to figure it out, because if you go into the playoffs and you can't get set in the half court and you can't shoot the 3 effectively, that's going to be a nightmare second round with the Cavs. And they've already declared their salvo. They said, we don't think no chance in hell that you can beat us in a series. So it's something to monitor, a new budding rivalry in the division. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Another great podcast. Look forward to it next week. Another opportunity to evaluate. Guess what it is? And we didn't even talk about it, but we'll have a chance. We talked about it a little bit, but free agency frenzy will go down. We'll have a reaction as to what happened the 9th through the 11th. Get ready. Buckle up. Follow at Detroit Podcast. We will have all the news about free agency, the reactions, the fits, the grades. Bring it all down. We'll have another podcast, and we'll break everything down regarding the world of Detroit sports. And thankfully, the fans of Detroit, we're not accepting any more mediocrity. It's time to elevate, time to hit the peak of the mountain. Everybody's been to the playoffs. Everybody's won games. Now it's time to peak. And let's see what happens this free agency with Brad Holmes and the Detroit Lions. Thanks, everybody. I can't wait to fire it up next week with my guy, Adam, the Jock Straczynski, on Doc and Jock, which is featured on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.